I accidentally destroyed my wife's perfect life, and she'll never forgive me. Stay tuned for the entire story. And if you're into wild real-life drama, make sure to hit that subscribe button. When I entered her life, she seemed to have everything in perfect balance. Her business was thriving and running at full capacity, bringing in great success. She had a set of very active hobbies that she enjoyed every single day, and she managed to blend them seamlessly with her work schedule. She was in excellent shape, her fitness maintained naturally through those active hobbies. She radiated happiness and fulfillment. Then I came along. We fell in love almost instantly, and within just a couple of months, she found out she was pregnant. She was nervous, unsure of how things would change, but she knew how much I dreamed of having a family. In the end, she decided to have the baby because she knew it meant the world to me. The pregnancy was hard on her, especially physically. It drained her energy to the point where she could no longer take part in any of her hobbies, all of which were activity-based. That was the first major blow to her sense of happiness. As the months went by, her self-image began to crumble. She had always been athletic, but as her body changed, she struggled to see herself the same way. Even though she eventually returned to her pre-pregnancy weight, she admitted she could barely stand to look at herself in the mirror anymore. The birth itself was traumatic. She endured 36 grueling hours of labor. Her epidural failed, so she had to go through the entire ordeal naturally. To make matters worse, there were last-minute complications that forced the doctors to reach in and physically pull our son out, which caused her incredible pain. And after all of that, the hospital staff practically abandoned her. No one explained how to care for herself after delivery, so she had to search for information online. On top of that, they completely forgot to provide her with her prescribed pain medication for her disability during the 5 days we were there. She suffered through painful withdrawals, and in the end, they simply cut her off entirely. When we finally returned home, things didn't get better. Our maid had allowed the house to fall into a complete mess. To make matters worse, she let my wife's service dog out in the rain and ignored instructions to dry him off. As a result, the dog developed skin infections, expensive ones to treat. Needless to say, we had to let the maid go. When I came into the picture, her life was practically perfect. She had a thriving business that was doing incredibly well. She had hobbies she loved and practiced daily, and they fit perfectly into her busy schedule. She was in excellent shape, partly thanks to those active hobbies, and overall, she was genuinely happy with life. Then I entered the scene. We fell for each other almost instantly, and within just a couple of months, she found out she was expecting. She was nervous, but I was overjoyed. She chose to have a baby because she knew how much I wanted a family. The pregnancy, however, was tough on her physically. It drained her energy so much that she couldn't keep up with any of her active hobbies, which was a rough start for her. As time went on, her self-confidence took a hit. Her athletic figure changed, and although she eventually returned to her pre-pregnancy weight, she says she can hardly stand looking in the mirror anymore. The birth was extremely difficult. It lasted 36 hours. Her pain relief didn't work, and there were last-minute complications that required the doctors to intervene in a way that caused her a lot of pain. To make matters worse, the hospital staff provided very little guidance afterward. She had to look up how to take care of herself online. They also forgot to give her her prescribed medication for the entire 5 days we were there, which caused serious discomfort and made recovery even harder. When we finally came home, our home wasn't in the best condition because the maid we had at the time had let things go. On top of that, she allowed my wife's service dog to get caught in the rain and didn't dry him properly, which led to the dog developing skin issues, and the vet bills for that weren't cheap. Needless to say, we had to let the maid go. I had to return to work immediately because the new job I had taken to provide us with health coverage didn't offer any leave for new fathers. Our baby also cried excessively, making it extremely hard for my wife to manage on her own while still recovering. When she tried to restart her business, we realized it was nearly impossible to manage with a newborn who rarely slept for long stretches. We had assumed we'd be able to work during naps, but that turned out to be far from reality. To make things work, My mother moved in to help watch the baby so my wife could focus on earning an income and I could keep working to maintain our insurance. But eventually, there was a major disagreement. My mother became controlling about how we raised our child and tried to push my wife out of certain decisions. That situation ended badly, and now my mother is no longer involved. Recently, we found out my wife is expecting again. I admit I felt happy at the news because I've always wanted a big family, but my wife's reaction was the opposite. She felt dread. With my mother gone and our situation still difficult, my wife may have to give up the business she built from the ground up to become a full-time mom, which she doesn't want. When I look back, I feel like I've taken away so much from her. She lost her hobbies, her self-confidence, her thriving business, and a big part of her identity. She went through a deeply difficult experience that might leave emotional scars for years. And to those who might say, "But you gave her a son," the truth is, she struggles to connect with him. To her, he's a constant reminder of the pain and mistreatment she went through at the hospital, the loss of her career, and the sleepless nights that replaced her once joyful life. I feel like I've ruined everything she loved, and the hardest part is knowing she's aware of it too. For clarity, when we learned she was pregnant again, I was actually the first to suggest we consider ending the pregnancy because I knew how hard the first experience had been for her. I told her I would fully support whatever decision she made. She's decided to keep the baby, partly because she wants to believe this time could be different, partly because she knows I've always dreamed of a big family, and partly because her own relatives were strongly against her choosing otherwise. Update: it's been 6 months since I posted, and everything has changed in ways I never expected. It's been about half a year since I first shared my story, and honestly, it feels like I've aged 10 years in that time. Back then, I was feeling like the villain in my wife's story, the person who came into her life and turned it upside down. I still carry some of that guilt, but things have shifted, not necessarily for better or worse, just in ways I didn't expect. The pregnancy. My wife's second pregnancy has been completely different from the first. Physically, it's been easier, fewer complications so far, no severe morning sickness, and she's still able to do light versions of some of her old hobbies. Emotionally, though, it's been a roller coaster. She's constantly anxious that something will go wrong. She keeps comparing everything to the first time, and I can tell she's bracing herself for disappointment. She even admitted that she's afraid to get too attached to this baby before it's born, because she's worried she'll end up resenting them the way she resents our son. We've been in couples therapy for months now. I went into it thinking it would be about improving communication, but a lot of it has been me just listening to her grief. She's grieving the person she used to be, the life she used to have, the freedom she lost. Sometimes I feel like she's also grieving the version of me she thought she married, the adventurous, spontaneous guy, before I became dad who's always tired and stressed. Our son. This is the part that surprised me most. Back when I wrote my first post, she admitted she didn't love him. I honestly thought that might never change. But something has been shifting. She started spending small, intentional moments with him, reading a short story at night, sitting with him in the backyard in the mornings, letting him help her bake cookies, which mostly meant he dumped flour everywhere. I'm not going to lie, it's still not the warm, effortless love some moms talk about, but there's a connection starting to form. She even smiled, genuinely, when he ran up to her after I picked him up from daycare. Of course, there are still moments where his cries in the middle of the night push her right to the edge, and she'll disappear into the bathroom for 20 minutes just to breathe. But it's progress. The business. After a lot of sleepless nights and difficult conversations, my wife made the decision to officially put her business on pause, but not close entirely. She's been working on creating an online version of it. This way, she can still run certain parts from home while caring for the kids. It's nowhere near the income it used to be, but it's something she feels proud of again. I've been trying to help where I can, even if it means learning things I never thought I'd need to know, like how to package orders or run customer service emails. The mother-in-law situation. My mother and my wife still aren't speaking, and honestly, that's been both a blessing and a curse. On one hand, there's no constant tension in the house anymore. On the other, we've lost the extra set of hands, and juggling everything without help has been brutal. We tried hiring a part-time nanny, but the cost was almost as much as my paycheck after insurance, so we had to let her go. We're basically just surviving 1 week at a time. My perspective: I won't pretend I've handled everything perfectly. I still get frustrated, and sometimes I catch myself feeling defensive, like I need to prove I'm not the villain in this marriage. But I'm starting to see that this isn't about blame, it's about adapting. Life threw both of us into a situation neither of us could have fully prepared for. And the truth is, even if I hadn't come into her life, even if she'd stayed in her perfect, preemie bubble life, still would have changed somehow. We've both stopped trying to get back to how things used to be and started asking, how can we make what we have now work? It's not romantic, it's not a fairy tale, but maybe it's something real. The future. With the new baby's arrival getting closer, I've been thinking a lot about what I could do differently this time. I've already arranged to take unpaid leave from work after the birth. It's going to hurt financially, but I refuse to let my wife go through another postpartum period feeling abandoned. We're also looking into hiring a postpartum doula for a few weeks, even if it means cutting other expenses. Do I still worry she'll never truly forgive me for how our life changed? Every single day. But I also see glimmers of hope, small moments where she laughs, or where we're both sitting on the couch with our son between us, and it feels almost like a team. Maybe our love story just looks different now. Maybe it's not about the whirlwind romance anymore. Maybe it's about showing up, even when things are messy and hard. Thanks for sticking with me this far. Tell me in the comments how you'd handle this situation. If you liked what you heard, don't forget to subscribe. There's a lot more stories on the way.